Hebrews 11 verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. First and foremost, I want to give our honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. Shalom to those like men that scattered abroad, pushing this truth without sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. And also shalom to you very, very few sincere sisters that's taking heed and getting in order in these last days. Right, your brother Amawan comes with a quick lesson, low one's edifying and, uplifting, comforting, right? Because beautifully, amen, call Allah Yahweh Shem Yahushua. That's why we say, double honor to our elders and our apostles, man. Because as the days are going on, we get further and closer and closer to Jacob's trouble. We're going to need those faith boosters. We're going to need all of those gems that our elders been speaking to us. We're going to need all the comfort from the scriptures, to keep us in a good mind frame inside these last days, man. To keep enduring. So quickly, our elder, the bishop, our Tazawon right here in the Atlanta branch, right? Because at the briefing, he said it. Keep your eyes peeled, man. The Lord's about to start. The Lord about to start giving His bag, man. He about to start showing you things to keep you on point, to keep you hydrated in the spirit. Not high in the spirit, but just hydrated. Comforting, let you know that He's there. So with that being said, you must keep doing what you got to do and keep finishing your race, keep working, doing your task. Because He's about to show you that, hey, I'm right there beside you. And the water for that, because it was definitely the confirmation. It kicked in yesterday. It kicked in yesterday. And with that being said, I said it to say, we was at work. I mean, not work. I was working on a small task. My small task was I was running some cords on my car. And it was beautiful because I was done doing the work, and literally when I was Salakia, when excuse me, I'm gonna show you better than I can tell you. I was running this last cord, and after that I was done. So as I looked up, I was upside down because you're trying to run cords, so you're not trying to have it touching nothing hot, right? And as I ran it, I seen like a number. So I'm just like, I know that's not what I think it is. So when I turned around, I looked at the number some more. This is what I saw. Right? And it was just like, oh man, this is correct. Hey, call Allah Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Because I was finishing up what I had to do. That was the last thing I needed to do. And I seen that, I was like, man, that's 144. And that's the first thing I thought about was what, the elder had said. Just look up, keep looking up, because, hey, the Lord about to start showing you things to know that you, hey, you in the right spirit. You doing what you need to be doing. So that just kept me to, just to think, man, just keep finishing the race, man. Keep finishing the race, and I'm going to go from there, because I started off with faith, right? Now, faith is the evidence, it's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, right? We're hoping that we're one of those men. We get crowned it, and yes, it's the evidence of things not seen. Yes, so in this picture, yes, you're seeing 144. Yes, those are spiritual boosters. Do we know we're going to be one of those men? No. But we hope, right? We hope. That's why we're doing this task. That's why we're doing this ministry, because we really believe that, hey, we got a chance. We know the names, the prophecies, we're in the right spirit. We believe that, hey, we could be one of those men. So so with that being said, we keep fighting. We keep fighting for that incorruptible crown. So from there, I wanted to go to Colossians. And I only had 3 precepts, man. It was 3 heavy hitters that came straight to my mind. Well, really 4. I just quoted, because it's a book of 2nd Ezra chapter 16 and 40. Preparing yourself for the battle. you know, because it was crazy because as I was, saying I was comparing it, you know, running the chords, it was a small little battle, you know, because I'm like, dang, it's my first time really running some chords on a car, you know, but my mom was already like, you know what, it will get done, you know, and I got the fruits was at the fruits of completing that, right, the fruits of completing that car, right, was this right here. To see that, like, see, look, you got it. You know what I'm saying? You sat down, you locked in, and boom, you got to it. That was the finishing results of you completing, you know, right? That was spiritual to me, right? And also when we get done, you know, do completing this other task, right? Completing this task for the ministry of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. What's the fruits of that? Getting crowned, man. You know, Matthew the 25th chapter. Well done, my faithful servant. You know? Let me go to Colossians. Oh, let me finish quoting that 2 Ezra 16. Matter of fact, I just go get it, Salakia. Right? So you can see it. 2 Ezra 16, right? In verse 40. It says, "O my people, hear my word, make you ready to the battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth." Right? But you know, it's gonna be more so of getting ready for this especially Jacob's trouble. You know, it's gonna be a real battle. But in my mind, that's the first thing that came to my head was make yourself ready for the battle, man. You know, because it was a small battle, but it will get done. The Lord's gonna make sure that he sees fit to move you certain places. You know, give you that comfort to let you know that, hey, you gonna be good. You know, he can give you those them nuggets from elders, you know, apostles, brothers, right? And that's gonna help you ready for this battle that we finna, you know, go into, right, known as Jacob's trouble, right? And my last one, I want the two, Salakia. Colossians 3:12, it says, "Put on therefore as the elect of the Most High, right, holy and beloved, bowels of mercies, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, long suffering," right? And what's long suffering? That's patience, enduring, right? That's why I say, you know, you must just keep completing that task, man. Right? The fruits of you doing your task, doing your lot is that crown, man. Yahweh Shai has stored for you, you know. So I'm gonna finish this last precept in the amplified version of 1 Corinthians 9:24. It said, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run their very best to win, but only one receives the prize? Run your race in such a way that you may seize the prize and make it yours. Now every athlete who goes into training and competes in the games is disciplined and exercises self-control in all things. They do it to win a crown that withers, right, meaning tear away. But we do it to receive an imperishable crown that cannot wither, right? That's the incorruptible crown that no man can be able to take away, man. You know, and this is what happens when you complete that task. When you get that crown that's incorruptible, no man can take it away, right? It says, "Therefore I do not run Therefore I do not run without a definite goal. I do not flail around like one beat in the air," right? Just shadow boxing, right? So therefore we have a goal. That's why we're going to keeping ourselves under self-discipline, you know, because we know at the end of this task we already know the fruits that we're going to receive from, you know, being self-disciplined, man. You know, it says, "And do not flail around like one beat in the air, just shadow boxing." You know, that's like, you know, you shadow boxing, not really hitting nothing. Nah, man. It says, "But like a boxer, I strictly discipline my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached the gospel to others, I myself will not somehow be disqualified as unfit for service." Ooh, God is heaven, you know. So we put ourselves in you know, under hard, under hard works. You know, kind of trying to get the word up my head so early, right? You know, but we discipline ourselves, you know, so we can receive the fruits of, you know, staying down, completing our task, man. You know, and we know the Lord's going to give it to us, man. The scriptures don't lie. The scripture does not lie. You know, so I'm going to close out with that. That was really, you know, what I seen yesterday, you know, and like I said, it was a very good spiritual boost, man. You know, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying and uplifting. I want to give out honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, Babashem Karkadash. Shalom.